make that disappear.
Yeah. You can move that wherever.
Yeah, out of the way. All right. Just in the chat.
Yeah, black is I know enough to be dangerous.
They never sent us to the instructions. Just log into the WebEx from the website. I could have done that. All right. I have no idea how many people are supposed to be in here. So. A minute or two, yeah. No takers. Running past. Coming in. All right. All right, does anybody know of anybody else they're expecting to be here? This feels about right. Okay, good. You're okay if I sit down? I just had to stay near the speaker here in a little word, or the microphone here in a little word. Oh, I need some. Just get there. All right, well, thanks everybody for showing up. I appreciate your interest in ecosystem modeling and fishery stuff. So I just want to do a quick show of hands just to get an idea of what line offices are represented. I'll just run through them. Anybody from NESDIS here? NESDIS one line. Weather Service. There we go. Bob. All right. OAR associated, yes. And then Ocean Service. Fishery Service. Other. What's the other representation here? Okay. ESRI. Oh, no. Software Esri. Okay. Let's look at ESRL. Oh, no, ESRI. Okay. Yeah. Lots of acronyms. Yeah.
I'm from the RAND Corporation.
Okay. RAND. All right. Okay. All right. So, okay. Yeah. Okay. Excellent. Thanks. Thanks everybody for showing up. This is very fishery oriented. I hope you were all at the plenaries yesterday and today. Anybody not at the plenaries this morning or yesterday morning? All right. Well, you'll just be a little. I'm going to skip over or go fast through some of the stuff they've already mentioned. So I'm Howard Townsend with the NOAA Fisheries Service. I should clarify and say I'm our fisheries ecosystem modeling coordinator. When I'm in fisheries office, let's say I'm the ecosystem modeling coordinator, one idea pops in your head. If I say to a bunch of oceanographers that I'm an ecosystem modeler, they think biogeochemistry, maybe you put some nitrogen, phytoplankton, zooplankton, and maybe a fish in there. Well, this is very fisheries oriented where we're trying to take into account fish population interactions. And we do take in, we kind of put a lot more emphasis on the fisheries and living marine resources and maybe a little less emphasis on the biogeochemistry and the plankton and zooplankton and that sort of stuff. But we do pay some attention to it. So this is an odd setup. I get to look at my screen there. But just borrowing slides you've already seen. So NEMS has a lot of mandates that we have to do this sort of modeling work for. We have 450 plus fishery species that we make stock assessment management decisions on. 117 marine mammal species we have to worry about, et cetera, et cetera. Lots of habitat actions where people do any sort of project in or around water that influences water. They have to do consultations and get permits. Lots of stuff going on in the water that NOAA is in charge of. You heard a lot about the fisheries. That's probably our biggest driver is the Magnuson-Stevens Act and fish populations. But there's a lot of other living marine resources is the term I'll use broadly to mean fish and protected species like mammals and sea turtles and that sort of stuff, you know, and habitats even, I throw that in there.
Well, can I ask you a quick question?
Yeah, feel free to stop me anytime. This is very informal, yeah.
When it comes to like species that are not a fishery, you know, there's no fishery associated with them. Like in coral reefs, for example, they have all this like dam fish and things like that. So as long as they're not endangered, how do they fit into the picture of a management construct? I mean, can people just go out and fish them all if they wanted to, and no one cares?
Yeah.
Or?
So that it gets really complicated real quick, and this helps explain some of it. Part of it is, you know, we have the exclusive economic zone, but EEZ, the kind of blue shaded areas. So that's U.S. waters that we're showing there. That's 3 miles to 200 miles offshore. Any fish in those waters, you know, just, you know, NOAA has a mandate to manage it. You know, now if there's not a big fishery for it, they often don't develop management plans. There's a whole process involved. And then when you get inshore, from inshore to 3 miles out, that's state waters. So states will manage those together. Or there's interstate commissions that work together on that. But yeah. But along those lines, so we have multiple mandates and multiple regions that we are working in. So a lot of work going on. And we do things a little different. You know, a lot of the modeling efforts in some of the other line offices, you have sort of the National Hurricane Center, and they're the experts in modeling hurricanes, and you know, the National Water Center or whatever. Each of our regions kind of have our own modeling shops in those regions for the different species we work with. But one of my jobs is to sort of coordinate across those regions to help support each other in our modeling efforts. I'm going to try to keep this stuff to a minimum because we got some actual activities to do, actual tutorial exercises. So we do this sort of modeling. This is sort of the stock assessment view of the world sometimes that we have, but this is what Rick showed earlier this morning. You know, we have data limited approaches that maybe aren't really even models. It depends on what your view of a model is. Biomass dynamics, where you just treat a fish stock or a population as just one big pool. Another one, you take into account the age structure, if it makes sense. You know, it kind of makes sense that a little tiny fish that's under a year old is really different than a big, huge 100-pound grouper that's 30 years old, and they're going to have some different dynamics. So it makes sense to add some age structure to that. And then on top of that, there's all these other drivers besides sort of this population dynamics that we need to sometimes be concerned with. And so this has been sort of the stock assessment view of the world. We sort of think of it as there's a spectrum of models actually that we do. You sort of took that onion and spread it out. So down on this end are sort of the stock assessment models that Rick Mathot was talking about this morning. And so some of these models where you include external factors are opportunities for model coupling. Then in sort of the ecosystem modeling world, we come up here to any sort of multi-species where we take into account that not only do each of these stocks or populations have their own dynamics, but they also interact with each other and influence their dynamics, and we would have tried to take that into account. All the way up to sort of these full-blown ecosystem models and full system models where we try to link oceanography to NPZ, to biogeochemistry, to NPC, to fisheries interactions, to economic drivers and interactions and outputs. So why do we use ecosystem modeling and not just always do stock assessment modeling in the middle fisheries? Part of it is we want them to be sort of an operating model. You know, we want, with these big holistic end-to-end models that I mentioned, we try to treat those as the real world, and we can make the real world, things happen in the real world, and do experiments, you know, treating that as our real world, that we then plug an assessment model to, so you can, in that real world, drive climate and that sort of stuff, and then use an assessment model to look at the output from that ecosystem model to see how well the assessment model does in capturing some of the dynamics, or does it make that much difference, or management decisions make that much difference in light of, you know, some big driver that's influencing the ecosystem in a lot of direct and indirect ways. We also want to use these ecosystem models. We really have started moving towards using multi-model approaches. You know, it used to be, when you go make a fisheries management decision, you go use your best model. Duke it out, and whoever's got the best model, the one that passes review, will use that. We're trying to move more towards use multiple models, because each model has its strengths and weaknesses, and we're probably teaching to the choir a lot of this stuff on the utility multiple model inference. And then finally, another big reason is to look at trade-offs between interactions. If I fish more of, say, a striped bass, I like to choose real fish. Chesapeake Bay is nearby, so you have striped bass at Chesapeake Bay. If I fish more striped bass, does that mean there's going to be fewer striped bass to eat the menhaden? And the menhaden, I don't know, there are these small little oily fish that are used for bait. They're also used to make omega-3 fatty acid tablets. If I ever buy omega-3 tablets or see them, good chance you're eating ground up menhaden there, or pressed menhaden, not ground up. They're getting the oil out. So there's, you know, and so that is also now another economic avenue that we don't typically keep track of. You know, back in the early days of fisheries, we sort of said, yeah, here's what we catch, and fishermen just want to catch whatever is out there. But if you think about something like, you know, fish that's being used for omega-3 fatty acids, they've got a lot of different drivers. They've got other substitutes, other competitors. They might not necessarily catch all of the menhaden that they can. They might have other substitutes that are cheaper. So, you know, we want to be able to look at these trade-offs and not just in the interactions within the food web, but also, you know, what are the economic impacts and drivers. So ecosystem modeling has sort of sprung up around NOAA over the years, over the past 2 decades, and in the past 10 years or so, we've tried to get more coordinated. We hold these national ecosystem modeling workshops and often invite other folks from other line offices to be involved. Hendrik Tolman has been to a couple of them now, and several other folks. So we can, you know, make sure that even though we're developing our regional efforts, that we're kind of all moving in the same direction, and all boats are rising on the high tides as things improve in our abilities. So in our first one we held about 10 years ago, we're really just sort of reviewing software packages, coming up with recommendations and parameterization protocols, that sort of thing. This parallels kind of, I think, where the unified modeling is going, so I'm taking just a few minutes to walk through our development of ecosystem model, you know, shared ecosystem modeling approaches. Then in our second workshop, we said, all right, we were having trouble getting these models used by managers. They've been in sort of an R&D mode for a while. What do we need to do? And a lot of us thought, well, we have a credibility gap. You know, the managers are used to these single species stock assessment models. What do we do to make these ecosystem models more palatable to managers who aren't used to seeing them? You know, again, all our modeling in fisheries is very stakeholder oriented, and we want to make sure we're giving information to make people make decisions. So we had this workshop to sort of look at the loop of, this is sort of a typical loop of making resource management decisions. So there's an ecosystem out there. You send boats out to do some sampling of fish and any other sort of biological or chemical or physical parameters that you might think are important. Use that to develop ecological models, stock assessment models, ecosystem models. That, you know, synthesizes and provides an assessment of what's going on in the system. That then gets the output from that gets, you know, talked about with stakeholders and policymakers and managers, and management objectives are set, and regulations put in place to parallel those sort of policies and management regulations, and those are implemented and oops, I'm going too fast here. Influence the resource, and then, you know, make some change in the ecosystem. So there's a sort of loop, and then we want to keep track of that loop. But at each step of this loop, there's, you know, sources of error, you know, sort of common scientific error that we think about, natural variability, observation error, structural complexity of your models. But there's also these sort of other harder to quantify types of error, like communication uncertainty. You know, we said this is what's happening in the model. Do the stakeholders and managers and policymakers, you know, understand that? You know, we've set these managed objectives. Do we specify them in a way that people can't game the system or work around them or understand them clearly? and then, do they actually follow the rules, or do they maybe kind of fudge a little bit when they go out and do the fishing? Do they kind of bend the regulations and that sort of? So there's all these sort of parts of uncertainty that we also want to be able to start capturing in our ecosystem modeling, and we spell that out, and then follow that up a few years later with a workshop on multiple model inference, learning a lot from other disciplines like the Weather Service, Hurricane Center folks. We had Jack Bevins from National Hurricane Center talk, other folks from oceanography and climate disciplines come and talk to us about, and really got concerned about communication uncertainty, and found things like this cone of uncertainty was a really helpful approach. We've been trying to work with that sort of idea in fisheries, and how do we communicate the uncertainty if you're going to use multiple models. Sort of, if you have a watch, you know what time it is. If you have 3 watches, you don't know what time it is anymore, right? Well, that doesn't work anymore. Everybody's watch is synced up with the Naval Observatory time now. But back in the day when you had to align your watch, you were never sure what time it is, but now everybody knows.
So Nicholas, on the last.
Yeah.
I was at this meeting too, and this was really interesting to see how the Hurricane Center, they showed the path where all the hurricanes went, and then it compared, what all the forecasts were. And what is different than that for the ecosystem world is that we don't observe the truth like that. It's not exactly how many there are of all the different creatures.
Exactly. We observe the truth a year later, and it's not even a sample. We don't even observe the truth, we sample the truth, right? So it's a little more complex. And the last one we had about a year and a half ago, we really delved into trade-offs. We're dealing with a biophysical system. There are constraints. If you talk to stakeholders about, do you want more menhaden or oysters or crabs, and they say, yes, we want more of everything, but there's a limited production that gets spread through through the food web, and so if you want more of one thing, you want to harvest more of one thing, you might get less of something else. And how do you break that truth to people? I think a lot of people get that sense, but we're still sort of dealing with how do we communicate that, how do we deal with it in our models, that sort of thing. So
This should be brought on to social science.
yeah, well, that's what we did. Next go round, we're going to tackle this again and bring in the social scientists, because there's only so much you can do in a model itself. But yeah, so I don't know, we should do we could do a joint NEMOW and ecosystems workshop. But through this, we're sort of doing in parallel kind of with I think where the Unified Modeling Committee is going to sort of support modeling efforts, adopt some standards for use, establish regular meetings, these sorts of things that we sort of our ecosystem modeling recommendations, but probably I see a lot of similar recommendations coming down the road for unified modeling, I think. I'm going too long on this, and I really want to get to the exercise part. I think everybody will have more fun when they get to build. We're going to build a model before the day's over, or a couple of different models. Somebody got time for that? It'll be a data-free model. That's really what slows you down, having to deal with data. I can build models all day long. Start having to throw data at it. It gets complicated. But again, part of the goal of this work is, we want to make sure across the science centers that we're conducting the science we need to understand the ecosystems. So, we want to make sure the observations there and that we're synthesizing that with models. We want to, move towards ecosystem-based management where people deal with the trade-offs and the resources. You can't have all of everything, more of everything all the time. We want to work towards getting this sort of management advice, ecosystem considerations into management advice. This is a sort of a new front for fisheries, move towards ecosystem-based fisheries management. And ecosystem modeling is sort of one of the ways to get there. To do all, reach these goals, we have to make sure we have adequate capacity across our regions and make sure that we're working with the different bodies. So we have these fisheries management councils, the North Pacific Council, the Pacific Council, the Mid-Atlantic Council, that make the fisheries management decisions for these exclusive economic zones. They have very formal processes that Rick went over this morning, Rick Mathot, and we want to make sure we start to incorporate more of this ecosystem consideration and ecosystem modeling information into that advice. One of the ways we're doing that is we have several priorities. We want to make sure we understand all the activities going across our centers. We want to make sure we're developing methods to review the models. We've got quite a broad suite of models that's depicted here. We'll take a look at a few of them in more detail in a little bit. And then we also want to develop a toolbox where folks can more readily use these models instead of having to build them from scratch. So we don't want to stop people from building from scratch. If somebody builds a cool model, we want to make sure that other folks can use it without having to duplicate that effort. So Toolbox is one of those types of approaches. I'm going to talk about all the overall things and sort of highlight some of the cool stuff that our regions, our folks out in the science centers working in these exclusive economic zones and in these large marine ecosystems, what they're up to. I won't hit on everything, but sort of, so Alaska is probably the one region that's really been doing this for, 30 years now, 20 at least. 20 years, yeah, that's probably true. 30's a stretch. They've got, this is just different regions of Alaska: Eastern Bering Sea, Gulf of Alaska, Aleutian Islands, and the Arctic. They've got sort of these ROMs and nitrogen, phytoplankton, zooplankton, a couple of models go in. They've got stock assessments where they're adding additional information, food web models, multi-species statistical models, and that's one distinction I haven't really made here. We have sort of an ecosystem models because they can be so highly parameterized. We often don't have statistical theories necessary to really evaluate those, so we just use them as simulation models to look at sort of strategic management advice. Some of the more somewhat simpler models, the fewer species where you can start estimating parameters, that's sort of the key goal for some of the stuff. Where it's more like the framework of the assessment models. The sort of multi-species statistical models might one day be more suitable for being run side by side with some of our stock assessment models. Anyway, lots of different models. Quantitative network models, we'll show those a little bit. That's where we're going later today. And they're actually getting this model information incorporated into management. This is just one example. Alan could probably list just the other things where so the SSC is the Scientific and Statistical Committee. Every council has one that reviews model outputs and says whether it's suitable to be used for management advice. But they used this is their multi-species statistical catch age model to alter their or to be a little more cautionary in their decisions about pollock. And pollock is the most caught species, the highest biomass, it's the biggest fishery in the United States. You buy every K-Rab, the imitation crab you get at the grocery store or in your sushi. There's sandwiches. Yeah. It's probably pollock, right? Yeah. Like surimi. Yeah, they turn it into surimi, and so it's just a little silvery, nondescript fish. Okay, yes, a beautiful fish, but nondescript. This thing was ugly. I can't think of it even. If you were to say draw a fish, no. But beyond that, they've probably got one of the bigger efforts going on here, where they have. You've probably seen this in several other talks now, where they've linked, climate model projections, downscales, to a variety of ecosystem models. It's just a variety, and they've looked at that in sort of a management strategy evaluation approach, looking at different control rules and how that influences bycatch and maximum sustainable yield, all these different measures, important measures for evaluating a fishery. Looked at a lot of different management scenarios and how will we manage in the future given climate change. And so they're really very forward thinking, and the Science Center and the council there have been really moving along quite well with this sort of approach. The Northeast Science Center up in Woods Hole, Massachusetts also has quite a range of models. there's not going to be a quiz on this later, so I'm not going to go through all these, but just to say there's everything from these simple sort of biomass dynamic models, multi-species, there's that age structure, all up to sort of this more end-to-end Atlantis model that takes into account ocean circulation and, biogeochemistry, NPZ, fisheries, economics. I don't know if they have a lot of economics in it, but it can. And they've really worked with the Mid-Atlantic Council, especially to, and the New England Council, I should say, to develop some processes and approaches for doing management strategy evaluation, taking models, evaluating different scenarios, different strategies for managing fisheries. What are the performance measurements that come out of that? Compare what might be the best way to manage, the system as a whole, given our performance measures and our objectives, and really take into account trade-offs across species and risk in making one decision. How might that affect other species, or how might it affect livestock? The Northwest Science Center, again, with the California current here, has three spatial models, or three models that have been broken up spatially. Kind of an intermediate complexity model, a big end-to-end model, and a food web model to look at a lot of fisheries issues here. One particular one is how sardine harvest affects other important species like sea lions and seabirds and flatfish and dolphins, and sharing that with their council so that they can incorporate information on how fishing sardines, which are a forage fish, we all enjoy sardines, right? Everybody loves sardines. Okay. Yes, some people not so much, but if we fish a lot of sardines, what does that do to the seabirds and the marine mammals and other fish in the stock? And the council, has never thought about that before. I know it's it's odd to think about. I know when I first got into fishery, isn't all fishery management ecosystem-based management? But it really is what's going on with that stuff. And so this is really a big step in moving towards ecosystem-based fisheries management. I'm going too long, and I want to just get around to having fun. So a lot of good stuff going on. Northwest Science Center. Down in the southeast, another cool thing they've done with two different ecosystem models here. So I wish I'd put another slide here. I forgot what the estimate is, but coastal Louisiana has lost, I don't know how many acres, or how many, got a number in your head? Come on, man. Yeah. On the order of tens of thousands of square miles, or at least a few thousand square miles of land over the years because of subsidence, just because the channelization of the Mississippi River. Mississippi River used to bring down sediment, from all across the U.S., right, and drop it down into the Louisiana Delta and then built marsh. I mean, that's why everybody knows bayous and marsh and all that sort of stuff. And that's where it came from. It was just, stuff that used to be in Ohio or Wisconsin or whatever. Somebody's old property in Wisconsin became Louisiana marsh at some point. But once you channelize that, the flow of the water is such that it doesn't slow down. And I think the sediment doesn't settle out, so now after subsided, they've lost a lot of marsh. So now they're making plans to poke some holes in the Mississippi River, build these sediment diversions in the mid-desert area and the mid-Breton, kind of up into Louisiana a little bit. But when they do that, that's could be particularly good if you build more marsh. Marsh tends to be one of the most productive ecosystems. Marsh and mangrove and things like that, where you've got a lot of nutrient sources coming into the water, but it mixes well, not sort of sitting in a pool like we saw on local Anchovy this morning. That's not good. Nutrients stagnating is not good. Mixing well, very good though. So there's a positive benefit, but it also will change temperature and salinity, and that could be important for a lot of different species that come into the delta for nursery habitat, and then go back out into the Gulf of Mexico and become commercially and recreationally important fishery species. So So they're using these sorts of models and coupling them to circulation models and hydrology models to evaluate what are the potential impacts on different living marine resources. And down the line, they are also interested in how that affects the economics and communities. And they still have a lot of data on that. They have done a lot of sort of survey stuff. There's like a big Vietnamese fishing community in Louisiana to be severely impacted there. So they, there's pluses and minuses. They want to use these sorts of models to start thinking about that. They've also in the Gulf of Mexico used this sort of to look at different harvest control rules and ways to manage fisheries. So where's NIMS going with this sort of approach? We do IEAs, and I'm going to not do what everybody else is doing here, or try to stop myself from doing integrated ecosystem assessment. So where you look at several different components of a system, not just one stock or one species. And also try to take into account the socio-economic components of the system. So really thinking of the social ecological system, not just an ecosystem or just a population, but really broaden out. Management strategy evaluations, I've talked about that a little bit. We're also going to move towards having some standardized tools, still have lots of development, and there's a lot of room for that, but start having a few tools that are standardized and used operationally across centers. Improve how we show some of the output from these models that get really complex, and do trade-off analysis and do sort of reference points to take into account the ecosystem. I'll talk about that. I talked about it. And Toolbox, I'll take a minute here, just say that, again, standardized tools and having graphable user interfaces where people who don't want to spend a lot of time programming but have the data can start building a model without having to learn C++ or Python or R or something, and just kind of plug their data in the model and select options and get stuff built. And also facilitate review. Once you've got the code set, we have to go through a lot of review and want to get past all that, speed that up a bit. So nice user interface for that. Visualization tools. So imagine you're a manager, you're at the management week where you're making decisions on 20 different stocks. You've gotten, for each of those stocks, you got a 150-page report. And then somebody else adds another report that's 100 pages, and they show you something like that, and you're spent, and so starting to show all the ecological links, it's really complicated. So we want to improve on how we do that. Sometimes we try to simplify and put it into words that make sense to just don't call them fish, just this is from Sarah item at the last that's my one joke. I won't do any more. So we developed some ways to view the data a little better, and I had an exhibit on that yesterday. If you haven't voted yet, it's number 76. All right, there we go. Now I got to laugh. But the big driver for us, and you heard it talked about from Cisco and just from Rick today, is that I'm not expecting everybody to read this, but we go into a room full of stakeholders. Have fisheries managers, you have folks who are out on the water fishing industry folks, commercial and recreational. You've got environmental NGOs, Greenpeace, who doesn't want you to catch fish or, a particular fish, or, all these different groups, they've all got a mental model in their head about how the system works. And they all come to the table with that model, and then you show your scientific model. Doesn't always incorporate everything they've thought about, but how do you get everybody thinking about the system in the same way so that you can make decisions? Because you need some sort of model that everybody will get behind. Otherwise, everybody's coming with their own mental model, and they're going to argue to their death against your model. I don't know about to their death. So they're really tired about their model unless you can get some buy-in from the stakeholders and say, yeah, we understand your concerns. We've tried to incorporate that into the model. historically we did all this ecosystem modeling, like, okay, here's some data we have, here's what we know about the system, let's just start putting things together. But it often doesn't incorporate the stakeholder concerns, so we're trying to move more towards that. So with that in mind, that's what we're going to do. We're going to have a little fun day. First I'm going to show you one of the tools we use that is really designed to run scenarios right in front of stakeholders' eyes so they can think about the system and that sort of thing. And then we will pretend like we're stakeholders, break up into groups, use some software, and make up your own models. So you got to really pay attention to the first round because we'll take what we learned from the first round and move it to the second round. So the first round, I'm going to use Ecopath and Ecosim. So this is a model that's built with Ecopath. It's real clear, right? Everybody gets that. We're just going to work with this model today. Is that okay? We have like 130 species. All right, for the sake of simplicity, we'll do a real simple model. But in the real world, I didn't want to share that. We do have fairly complex models, but for our tutorial purposes today, we get pretty messy. But we're going to just pretend like we're in this little place called Anchovy Bay. And so you don't have to just look at dots. We'll put a few pictures of what these things look like. So Anchovy Bay, there's some whales and seals people like to see and eat, and cod and mackerel and whiting and anchovy and other shrimp and things that people like to eat. And then sort of the lower parts of the food web, phytoplankton and zooplankton and detritus that feeds these food webs. We have some data on. We're gonna do some quantitative stuff that I'll drive, and then after that, we'll do some semi-quantitative stuff, qualitative stuff. But remember this picture because we're going to be concerned. We're going to transform ourselves and move over to Anchovy Bay. Now, how do I escape out of that? Move into. So we're going to. Okay. I work for NOAA, so I can't say that I'm trying to advertise that you should use this particular product. But we're going to use Ecopath and Ecosim because it's easy to work with and fun to share with stakeholders. And Ecopath itself was originally developed in 1984 by Jeff Polavina, who was a NIM scientist out in Hawaii. He just retired recently. So it was listed back in the NOAA's 200-year anniversary as one of our Big 10 accomplishments of the 200 years of NOAA. Instead of showing a bunch of equations, I'm going to walk through the software and talk about it as we go. That's cool with y'all. Everybody, you don't have to actually see all the model, all the numbers, but you can at least get the idea. So here's our models. Luckily, somebody gathered all the data for us already and put it into the model. That's really all the work itself. We get to just do the fun part and just pretend place of Anchovy Bay. So here's our basic input. Can everybody see that more or less? So we have whales, seals, cod, whiting, mackerel, all those things I just showed pretty pictures of. For these, we have some data on what the biomass, let's say 10 years ago, 30 years. Here we're just trying to develop a mass balance snapshot. So you saw all those interconnections, some consumers, some producers. Some things are consumers of other things, but they are consumed by things higher up the food web. And the idea with mass balance is that the production and consumption has to balance out between the groups and all the interconnections. So with that, we need to know sort of initial biomasses, production to biomass ratio. So that includes growth and reproduction all squished into one. And the consumption for biomass. So for every pound of whale, how many pounds of food does a whale have to eat? Well, about 9, or metric tons. This is all in metric tons. So that can be quite a lot of biomass. Notice there's other things here that you can add input to, but you need at least this sort of information. Ecotrophic efficiency is sort of a fudge. It's not a fudge factor. It's other mortality essentially. So this model essentially accounts for fishing mortality and predation mortality, but there's other sources of mortality in the system, and that's a way of accounting for it. So we need that information. We need to know this little matrix of who eats who. So we have, Here they're listed as prey. Here's the predator. So whales eat cod, whiting, mackerel, anchovy, benthos. And it all has this is all percentage of biomass. And all has to add up to 1, so that we've accounted for all the diet of an organism. And then we also need to take into account information on the fisheries. There's different fleets. We have a sealer fleet, trawler, so just a big net getting pulled through the water, steiners, a big net that gets circled around and they scoop fish out of, bail boats, and shrimpers. So sealers, I'm expecting somebody to raise an eyebrow. We get to harvest seals in this model. Everybody knows what country we're in then, right? So a seal walks into a bar. The bartender says, "What do you have?" And the seal says, "Anything but a Canadian club." They do harvest seals in Canada and other countries, and in some countries they also harvest whales. There's a big international whaling commission that NOAA has representation on as well. So they do these sort of fisheries modeling for. Sorry if I hurt anybody's feelings about seals here.
in the U.S.
What's that?
In the U.S.
Oh yeah, but harvest them? Yeah, but yeah, just technically.
Incidental, but
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, but training and...
It's just harvest.
Oh, yeah, there, I need it, yeah, it's like...
Yeah. So probably not that big of...
This is the Navy.
Native Americans, yeah. Right. Yeah. But then for each of those fleets, you have to take into account what they catch. So the trawlers catch whiting and mackerel. Steiners catch mackerel and anchovy. There's a bait fishery on the anchovy as well. And then there's shrimper fleet that goes out, targets shrimp, that sort of stuff. This is all, it's just a big accounting spreadsheet, essentially. We just want to, what's being produced and where it's going. That's what it boils down to. Now notice we didn't, in our initial estimates here, we didn't have all our things filled out, but because this is a system of linear equations where production and consumption have to meet to match, we could use the miracle of modern matrix algebra to estimate some of these values that we don't have data on. And so that's one of the first things that the software does for us is gives us those basic estimates and fills out that form the rest of the way for us so that we and I'll have to say this software was developed by NOAA and it was taken over by Daniel Pauly, Billy Christensen, Carl Walters, who were in the Philippines at the time at iFarm. I can't remember what iFarm stands for. But the idea was they wanted to develop this as a tool that developing nations that didn't have as much ability to do stock assessments, but had bits and pieces of the information that could help develop a full picture. This could be a useful tool for them. So that's a lot of the future development and this nice graphical interface and stuff came about because of that. So this has been a long history. So Ecopath was developed in '84, and there's been a steady development for the past almost 35 years now on getting this where it's useful. And it's used. I should have shown the slide. There's almost every country in the world has some sort of Ecopath model. Well, every country near the ocean. Good work. What's that? I should have shown the equation. So it's, you have to have production and consumption match, and so it's for every group. I wonder. Let me just see if I can show an equation here somewhere. So maybe here's the way of doing it. Mortalities. Well, here's at least a version. So production and biomass, right? Or production for biomass, that's the production of the system. And Z there is the total mortality. So we're assuming in this initial time step, we're just trying to come up with some reasonable initial conditions. So we've seen the stable state. So that means mortality and production should be equal, right? If it's in a steady state, this is sort of an assumption you have to make to get started. We'll walk away from this assumption in a little bit here, right? So with that in mind, whatever your P to B ratio is for each of those species, you know, you have to have your fishing mortality, any predation mortality, and other mortality equal out. Ecotrophic efficiency is the other mortality. So basically, what it's doing is it's connecting the predation mortality to that food web and consumption, and then it's estimating that other mortality to make things balance out, essentially. I can just probably be better to show you a reference than to try to walk through here, but that's the basic idea, and it's just, you know, if you have, you know,
But it's just a system of linear.
yes, this is a system of linear equations, right? Exactly, that's exactly the word I was get that word out. Thanks. So that gives us our initial conditions. That's all interesting and good and fun, but ultimately, it's not particularly useful. I mean, it gives a good snapshot. So if there was a species you didn't know much about, you didn't know what the biomass was, you know, like here, you know, in our basic input, notice we didn't know what the biomass of benthos was. Nobody had done any surveys of the benthos, but those basic estimates at least gave us a reasonable starting value for what the benthos must be in that system to support what's in the system. So that's pretty useful. And in fact, I have a friend who wrote a paper for the Journal of Irreproducible Results where he estimated the biomass of the Loch Ness Monster using an Ecopath and Ecosim equation. So it's a useful tool. That was sort of a fun thing, but it isn't, right? Yeah. You have to go and collect some data on that. It's hard to estimate biomass from those grainy photographs. But it was sort of just a fun thing to show that, yeah, things you don't know, you can. Right. Well, yeah. So right now we're just treating the whole system as a bathtub, right? I'm not going to get into it, but there is a simulation version where you can move this into spatial. I'm going to still treat the system as a bathtub, but there is. I'll see if it's loaded here. I can just show it real quick. But yeah, there's certainly. That's the idea behind the whole software. You start off first. Let's just build an Ecopath part of the model. Get some reasonable initial conditions. Now we move to Ecosim, where we're going to relax those assumptions about being mass balance, because we know, or not mass balance, but being in a stable state for the population. We know that's not really true for most of our species. But it's a useful way to set up initial conditions. And now we're going to move to Ecosim, where we allow things to change over time, given different pressures and that sort of thing. So in Ecosim, I'm just going to run right to it, to the output. Basically, it takes those equations and converts them into a system of differential or difference equations. And you can, with all those fisheries, we can see what the pattern of the fisheries is. So in this instance, we're simulating it over 40 years. Sorry, the numbers are so small there. They started off on a seal fishery and then they shut it down after a few years. And then the trawlers, they were pretty low initially and they've ramped them up over a few years. So we're just exploring scenarios. Seiners have been in a steady state. You know, bait boats, we stayed steady. Shrimpers, we stayed steady. I'm going to do a lot just sketching around here, but in the real world, you would have input values and real data collected. But this will give you an idea. I've got to move this little symbol around. So we're going to run it and see what happens to the system. All right. Clear, right? Everything. It's still a little tricky, especially when you have these little tab things everywhere. You can see, like, our whales have increased slightly over that time period. Seals increased and leveled off. Kind of after you quit fishing, how about that? There started to be more seals after fishing. Harvesting is probably a better term. It's hard to fish a mammal. And cod, wow, they really dropped off. What do we do there? Because we ramped up the trawler, and that was when the harvest on that. So you can see how you can start to use this to explore different scenarios. You know, what if we just set everything to 0? What would happen in the system? Everybody says, oh, we'll have more of everything if we set it all to 0, right? If we just quit fishing, something happened, everybody in Anchovy Bay decided they don't like fish anymore, or seals, so what happens to the system? Oops, I don't know, I accidentally sketched that in there. There we go. Oh, come on, Howard. All right, run, see what happens. All right, we do get a lot more of some things, but you see how there's some blips up and then drops back down and then steady increases. The seals go up really tremendously. Mackerel go up and then drop back down because as their predators grow up, their populations would go down. Those sorts of explorations. We can reset all. Let's come up with some other scenarios. Any other ideas that you'd like to do in this system? Right, really, I've got a...
Get rid of those nasty predators.
Okay. We're going to make everything we want. We want to fish out all the predators. So... Yeah, there's no fishing on detritus. That's just... yeah. I don't even know if you could put a fishery group on detritus. I'll just reset everything to 1, I think. Yeah. So we left everything in a steady state. I should have showed this first. That's good. Everything stays in steady state. That's just sort of a model check. All right, so we want to get rid of the nasty predators. So I forgot which ones were the predators. Let's go look back at that flow diagram. So whiting are pretty big predators. Well, whales are the biggest, but you want to get just the top predators. You want to fish out all the whales. Oh, we don't have any harvest on whales. There are ways to do that. I just can't do it with a sketch pad sort of way. Let's get rid of all the seals. All right, you don't like marine mammals at all, right? Okay. What's that?
Except for the whales.
Yeah, except for the whales. Yeah. So we're gonna. You can do this sketching it in here. I'm just gonna ramp it up to some really high value here. It's gonna be like 10 times. We're gonna wipe out the seals. All right. There shouldn't be any seals left after the 10-fold increase in fishing pressure. Oh yeah, that knocked them out pretty quick there. Did it do it? What else? But what was the winner in that scenario? Whiting. So that was one of the big fish that the seals preyed on. So if you want more whiting, if there's and you get these sort of things in the real world where somebody says, let's cull predators because we want more whiting, so get rid of the marine mammals and eat them all. We can't really do that with U.S. regulations, but that's the sort of scenarios that often you get from stakeholders, and you can explore those. We're doing it in a fun sort of toy model way, but you can do it more formally with real input, and there's ways also to read in time series of data that you can fit your model to simulate a period of time so to make sure you capture the essential dynamics and then do some projection or forecast. But that's sort of the idea here is that we want to run these sorts of models that encourage stakeholders to talk. And I don't know, anybody else want to try another scenario?
In your interaction with stakeholders, you might find this to be persuasive or helpful.
I don't. It agrees with what they say. I should. This would be recorded. Of course, they. No. Huh? Introduce squid into the models. Oh, here I could do that. That would take a little time. So this idea of the on-the-fly sort of thing is kind of tough to do with stakeholders, especially some simpler things like that. But when you start getting into more complex dynamics, you can certainly do that in the model, but this would take me a little while, and I have to rebalance it. But there's things like that you can do. So that's one level of stakeholder engagement. But I'm glad you mentioned that about introduced squid, because that's what's happened here. This is a model that a bunch of ecologists and biologists sat around and said, here's what we know about the system. Let's build a model. And they didn't talk to any stakeholders. They said, here's some data we have, and here's how we know it all interacts, so we'll build this model, and this will answer everybody's questions. And as soon as you start taking it to stakeholders, they start saying, well, what about, the decadal oscillation, and how does that influence hot whiting? Like, they probably could. And you can incorporate that in here. There's ways to do that with this sort of system. not gonna do it today, but as you can see, stakeholders, especially folks who are on the water every day and sort of have their own ideas, like the guy in the video this morning said, yeah, it's the blue green algae from Lake Okeechobee makes red algae. Like, okay, well, we'll test that hypothesis out. So that's part of what you want to do, and that stakeholder in that video maybe was not as informed, but there's certainly folks who are on the water every day fishing, making their living off of fishing. They better understand the system pretty well, right? Or they don't stay in business very long if they can't find the fish. So they often have really good input and the stuff we do want to incorporate. And so that...
I want just quickly, just to address that. I mean, our people are using these sorts of models. So look at invasive species, for example.
Yeah.
I mean, if you bring or have sudden increase, perhaps it is a squid.
Yeah, right.
Whereas there's no explainable reason why squid are increasing or moving northward along the California coast. But there are methods in which you can introduce your redistribution of species and invasive species. And start evaluating what the implications are. A good example in the Great Lakes deals with there's a risk of Asian carp, silver carp and zigzag carp in invading the Great Lakes. One of the things that deals with economics, especially along the Chicago Cemetery Canal, is really to block it, because that's a conduit from the Mississippi Illinois River where Asian carp exists and the Great Lakes. But if they shut it off, then they're dealing with also the economics that deals with barge traffic, navigation, and shipment of goods. So these models are actually helping to inform the Army Corps of Engineers and others. I mean, what's the best route and how do we weigh the risks? So there are other applications other than the rest of the fisheries.
Right. So that Louisiana coastal was an example. That was the EW model that was being used there. And that was a spatial EW model. I'm not set up to show a spatial model here, but you can essentially what it does is takes your region, breaks it up into a grid, and has these Ecosim dynamics going on in each grid with some transfer across the grid. And you can have different habitats in the grid, so some species might prefer a particular habitat, so they would aggregate in that area. Or you can have forcing functions like temperature salinity. If a species has a preference for a temperature salinity, you can take outputs, get a Raman's model or add certain model or hydrology model, and the fish would move, the biomass would move into the area where there's preferred habitat. You can then focus your fishery in a particular area. So this is just sort of touching on it, but this is definitely a good way to engage and get discussions going, and that's really, how it's being used, as Dawn was pointing out. But then you also do, we haven't talked much about any kind of socioeconomic impact here, right? We've talked about, there's some fisheries for these things, but there's a whole value chain for the shrimp fishery or the sardine fishery. You could have a or anchovy. You could have you could set regulations where you allow more anchovy to be taken by the bait folks, but then, the folks who are using it as food would not have as much, and so, there's different values, based on how it's being used. You have the whole supply chain from distributor to up through restaurants and individuals, which you can also take into account. You can do a little bit of that here, but there's other things, if there was substitutions, like I was mentioning for Menhaden, that gets a little trickier to start the model. So sometimes when we want to get that sort of input from stakeholders let me put this back into full display mode. Oh, come on, Howard. Let me get the slideshow. Go back to where it was. Where are we at? So we still have an hour. Good. This is perfect. I wanted to have about an hour for this exercise. So, start from turn slide. Okay. So one of these approaches we're starting to do a lot more of now is participatory modeling using quantitative network models or mental models. So I'm going to walk through that a little bit, and then we'll break up into groups. How many is that? We'll probably do like 3 groups of 4 or 5. All right, we'll do that. So So let me just walk through this real quick. So here's an example of a quantitative network model, and this will look familiar, at least to Melissa. She was around for this oyster summit where we did this. This is Chesapeake Bay oysters, and we had a bunch of stakeholders in the room. And we predefined these nodes, these components. We said, all right, we're concerned about the oyster population in Chesapeake Bay. And here are the big things we think are influencing the population. We don't know exactly how. But you stakeholders who are involved, whether you're in aquaculture or you harvest them, or you're a scientist, or whatever group you're in, you have some ideas about how these nodes interconnect and what the strength of these interactions are. And so, we had at the core with the oysters, fishing. This is just an example, has a fairly strong negative effect on the population. But oysters have a fairly positive effect on the fishing industry. And then poaching is illegal fishing, similar idea here. There's also an issue with shell availability. So oysters, their larvae, when they put their larvae out, they need some place to settle, a hard substrate, and there's not enough hard substrate around. That's not good for the population. There's policy. How do we get all this policy coordinated? Would that improve the oyster stock? So we had stakeholders, draw these connections, and then once we did that, we could combine their thoughts on this into to a matrix. So you convert this to a matrix. So it's qualitative, it's semi-quantitative, right? So each of those values, there's pluses and minuses. You give them a score of 1 or 0.5 or whatever, something between 0 or -1 and 1, and then you can average those scores together and say, the shared mental model, we can now explore the dynamics, not necessarily how the system works, but at least how you understand how the system works. And so we can begin to show that, you understood the system, but even with your model, if we perturb one component of it, given all the other interactions, you might get a different result than you expect. So it's also a way to help illustrate the stakeholders that, get their input on what's going on in the system, but also with this perturbation analysis, help them understand that it's a much more complicated system, and you can't really keep track of it all in your head. So we need to develop.
Can you go back to the previous slide?
Yeah.
So why is the policy coordination impact would be negative to oysters? What was the rationale?
I don't know. I grabbed a snippet out of somebody's, this might have been somebody who didn't like, there's a little bit of that. This is just different stakeholders. Yeah, maybe they thought that,
because it's a perception of the stakeholder, your policies are actually impacting
in a negative way. Yeah, right. Well, for example, in the Chesapeake Bay, that particular example, there were stakeholders that say we shouldn't have sanctuaries for oysters because if you let them sit still, we need to fish them so we get them stirred up and get the sediment off of them. So if you let them sit still, that's not good. They're just going to get, all the sediment over them, they're going to die out. We got to fish them to keep them healthy. I don't know that I have any data on that to make it a step, but that's one particular viewpoint that you can take into account. Yeah.
Well, just one other thing. So, for our students, you basically have 5 different general categories, right? Strongly positive, no effect, negative, strongly negative.
Yeah. And we'll go through that in the actual exercise when we actually build these models here. All right. You have a question? Oh, no worries. No. All right.
I know what you're doing with this. These food banks you're talking about. I think you mentioned Carl Walters.
Yeah, Carl Walters. You know Carl?
Yeah, no, I've been with him.
Oh, yeah.
And then you also mentioned perturbation now.
Yeah.
What are the things that the fisheries people are really concerned about? You'd like to know maybe how they got there, how they did.
Yeah. That's a good way of putting it.
So, the audit is kind of perfect analysis. I mean, just understanding this interaction in the group. That if you were to try to convince somebody that economic cut the total by half.
Mhm.
You can't, start for the ocean floor. That becomes a hard step.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they're not always convinced. They want to see, okay, they stop it for 2 years and something happens.
Yeah.
So the story of a clock on the Canadian coast is that these never came back.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
So there's a real deep history in there, and I'm just wondering if, in addition to this kind of, maybe a little more quantitative approach, whether you mix that in with some of the economic and the history components in there, and try to understand, what happens when you do something. What are some good examples where they did stop the solid foods and the things that bounce back?
Right. Yeah, exactly. That's one of the take-homes here. Some of this stuff is, in complex systems, hysteresis can take over. You can't always unscramble an egg, right? You can't, you overfish a cod and you may have shifted the system, and it might be the ecosystem, the ecological part, it might be the socioeconomic system, or there might be some climate driver, but you shift it in a way that, it doesn't just spring back. There are some cases it does, some species it doesn't, and I don't know that I have a good summary of what are the factors that, in this case, this would be easy to restore. In that case, you're never going to restore it. You have to do this sort of historical exploration and quantitative analysis and qualitative analysis to sort of get at those sorts of answers. And this is a suite of approaches that you would use to start to answer that.
You didn't use a physical background, ocean currents, depression on mineral, movement, change and so on. That was usually an item in the problem with the cotton. This is a pelagic feeder. I mean, it's really difficult. And I don't know if they could bring that back, but, has someone like yourself done analysis or some of these other more high profile issues in small communities?
Yeah, certainly that sort of approach, looking at climate factors. I'm just sort of highlighting one approach, but that approach where you bring in climate factors and that sort of stuff has been done lots of time. I mean, that's sort of the whole drive behind the ACLIME, is to look at all the this is what ACLIME stands for, Alaska.
That's the climate integrated modeling.
So it has climate models, it has biogeochemical models, it has the NPZ and food web models and up to fisheries economics, so that you can explore those sorts of things. I know there's been multiple analyses of cod. I can't think off the top of my head anybody's got to answer or gotten close. That's definitely part of it, but I don't quite understand why, those things. I mean, that's where the fishery has gone, but I don't understand why those are excluding cod from the system. But there's certainly this. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to also say that this doesn't include people who are either of the issue. And that if you're looking at a fishery that potentially it might not come back, but it's providing services and other things, then there's a belief of building habitat for one of the organisms to provide food. Project systems that are commercially important. That could then be used to say, hey, I'm going to get the resources doing that, so we're going to get all these additional benefits. And play out that system and showing that these other states will be benefited and growing. So there's a need to not confirm some of the species, but the whole system services.
That's a good point. I mean, this example, we had a specific target in mind to, understand the factors affecting oysters, but that's a really good point.
In this example, we have an arrow with no time.
Oh, I think I just forgot to put it in there. It was positive.
The other question, now we always talk about linear regression. Why do they have to be linear?
I don't know that they have to be. This examples I was showing were linear, but
you could have nonlinear, you can model it in a nonlinear way. It's what the way when you model, because it's modeled as linear. Maybe the model is not linear, maybe it's not linear.
Yeah, right. And that was just the example I showed you with EWE, where's the system of linear equations, but there are certainly approaches where you can use nonlinear equations, right? I'm just sort of choosing one of several approaches just because it was easy to demonstrate that particular software, but there's certainly,
One point about these, this whole thing, working memory modeling framework is that we do this with stakeholders a lot. And so that's actually one of the best parts is to get modelers and stakeholders together and talk about the relationship. So even though you may not figure it all out, you get them to talk about this affects this and this affects this. And then it kind of, reveals the scientists things on stuff. We don't know anything about that.
Yeah. And on the same other side, you have a stakeholder who used to yell at you at a meeting because you didn't like your model. Now that you've listened to him and at least are trying to incorporate his concerns or her concerns, I think, okay, I'll listen to you a little bit longer now, and maybe I won't yell as hard at you now. So there's a lot of advantage here. So perturbation analysis, let's go ahead and hop into the exercise. So here's what we're going to do. Here's just an example. It could be, here's how you build them. You have sort of a component. We want to understand auto accidents, right? And I think that highway traffic has a positive influence on auto accidents, i.e., as highway traffic goes up, auto accidents go up. I'm making it linear. You could work the system here and make this non-linear with this sort of looping. But I'm just going to keep it real simple for now. Bad weather, I think, has a really strong effect. In fact, given my commute in this morning, I can verify, I have a data point. Driving speed, as people speed increases, I think auto accidents go. So I saw that node, I add the line. The highway patrol, if I have police officers patrolling the highway, that will decrease auto accidents, right? But as auto accidents go up, I think that also increases the number of highway patrol out there, so there's a little feedback going on. So you start talking with I'm just giving an example so we all can get our heads around here. So we just start looping together. But bad weather, maybe more highway patrol come out because there's bad weather, and you can see how, I'm making this linear step by step. When you start to preserve it, and you don't get linear responses, et cetera, et cetera. So you all get the idea of how this is done. So we're going to do a little exercise. I'll tell you what we're going to do first, and then I'll just break up into groups, and I'll show you how to do some more. So we're going to have groups of, how many have? 6, 8, 10, 12. I want to do 3 groups of 4. All right. So we need, in each group, don't be in a group with somebody that you work with every day. Just hop in a group. You need at least one person with a laptop. So I'll give you a minute to sort of just, or you want to do, let's do high school gym. You want to do high school gym?
Do you mind if we do some groups of 6 and then we can see the table?
That's a good point. Good point. Okay, 2 groups of 6. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Or you just want to just stick at the table you're in? Well, you guys work together. Let's switch somebody up. You don't know him?
You were still where you are.
Okay, all right. Come on over here. That's right. You take that part. All right. So, over there. Yeah. We're going to take back to Anchovy Bay, and you're going to make up your own. This is one, right? Yeah. Choose one person who's going to go on the web and use the software. Give you a minute to sort of say hello, see each other. We got 5. All right. I'm not on your team. I'm just over here. Yeah. Good. This is good. You're good. I'm not going to be on the team. Because we got everybody together. Kind of unbalanced a little bit. There's 7 over there. Somebody over there, come over here.
Those fellows thought it's hurt because you
guys work in the same building. And so if you want coming back over here, Ron. Sorry. All right. Nominate a team captain who's going to use their laptop.
Sweet.
Whoever got a laptop. Who's got a laptop hooked up to the internet? Interweb. You probably have used this a lot of before, have you? Are you familiar? I'm familiar with it. Okay. I haven't really done it well.
Yeah.
What's that? Oh, to see the screen? I don't know how to do it with a separate screen, unfortunately. So just kind of have to hunker around somebody's laptop here. You can, or another thing is you can draw a piece of paper and then type it in or whatever. Use whiteboard. There you go. Perfect. Do we have markers? We don't have markers. Welcome to the government. I will see if I can find some markers. You can start sketching on paper for now, and I'll come back and check on that. I had no idea what the room layout. I've done this several different ways. I'm trying to use the software. But okay, so we're going to send back to Anchovy today. I'll show the original food. But I don't want you to replicate that. That was a food web diagram. Think of it. You can be a private scientist. You can be somebody who works for Greenpeace. Put yourself in whatever role you could individually want to be. Decide whatever you want to be.
I want to be the butcher.
Yeah. And so your group of stakeholders from diverse backgrounds, you got to come up with a shared mental model of what's important in the system. What do you want to keep track of? What do you think scientists should be modeling, collecting data on? And just how do you think the system works? You all got to work together. This is not how we do it in the real world. We have mediators and all that sort of stuff. It takes several rounds of workshops, but you can do it all in 30 minutes or less. But it's the dominant version of mental modeling. So we're going to take back to that. So the idea is you draw the circle, whatever you think the component is. If you think, okay, well the biggest, I see all these species here, but I only care about the whale. Or, particularly start thinking about the whales. And I think the PDO, specific decadal oscillation, is the biggest driver. And then somebody says, well, I think this is this. But then the PDO affects that, and so you start making those connections. But everybody comes up with at least one component to add. You can have multiple, but everybody should come up with at least one component to add and the connections in the system. Okay? No, this could be whatever you think drives the system. It could be, if you think it's lunar phases, drives lighting reproductive cycle. We should choose. It could be, whatever random thing you think. You think it's the price of tea in China affects export value of lighting. You got to figure out how to put that in there, but you can put it in there. Okay? Somebody gets a general idea. So we're going to choose. You want us to be a representative person. What stakeholder group? Yeah. Yeah, but you don't have to tell anybody what stakeholder group you're in. All right. So you can, everybody's a butcher. Yeah, everybody's a butcher, then you're all going to just be. Yeah. All right. So I'll see if we can find some markers. If I can't find markers, the other thing we can do is you can do it on a piece of paper, or we can do this software, this mental modeler software. I'll show the URL in just a second here. But come on, it's killing me. The screen sharing is killing me. I think this is it. Okay, so here's the mental modeler software. I'll show you how to get there in a minute, but you can add a component. I want to say specific decadal oscillation. You can pull it down. I can connect it. I can say it has a strong negative or strong positive effect. I can even add information how strongly I believe that. I'm not worried about that for now. So mental modeler, to get there, you go to mentalmodeler.org and you hit the software. And you got to give them a password, but I'll show you the password, so you don't have to do that. But I'll pop that up here if you want to start using that software. So you can sketch it out. Each person can sketch out their own ideas and then come together. Just do however you feel like you'd like to do it.
Yeah, good idea. We don't have to worry about how we feel.
Take a minute, create your own, but then you got to bring it together. You got to all bring it together and agree to. That's the trick about this is. This is one of the scenarios where you bring multiple models with different stakeholders or multiple stakeholders with different opinions and try to get them to develop a shared model of the system. So put yourself in whatever role. Don't tell everybody else in your group necessarily.
Can you show us again, refresh my memory for what the ecosystem matrix looks like?
Yeah. I'll flash that up here. Oops. I'll actually show it from the slides. But you don't have to reproduce this, but at least you can see what is in the system, right? So that's what's in the system. You don't have to, I mean, you can just say, all I care about is zooplankton in the system. I've got it. But yeah, let me do this. I have the pre-pictures. There we go. I'll see if I can find some markers so we can draw this up. If you can't draw it up, we can at least sketch it out in mental modeler. All right. I'll be back in a minute. Everybody got the general idea here? So, just sketch up your own model and bring them together, or discuss with each other what you think supported. Who's the leader? So Alan's the leader over here. Who's the... That's fine. That's fine. Can you draw a circle and a line? That's another thing. If you can draw a circle and a line, you can be a leader. Can you get people to top people? That's for sure. All right. I'll be back in a minute.
Is it real quick? Yeah. I'm sure there's non-sugar day somewhere, but this one's made up. Just think of the system as it is there, and think about. At some point we'll have to go back. We'll have to merge that. The point is that would make it easier. Think about what's important, how we're working now, and then we can have a conversation where we go, okay, well, create a.
Oh, you got 25 minutes.
You do that by putting learning, healers, or I guess.
No, they're not in this picture, right? So this is the fishermen are in this. Yeah.
Oh, I thought he had fishermen on the list.
He did, but not in this picture, right? So
they come in for the mortality pressure.
So basically, this is not full wet. Because you have these fleets that are impacting this. So in truth, we should say that can dial the pressure of the sealers. Right. You just get a black part. Right, in the ecosystem, in the map, I don't know, and Anchovy Bay, it's a magical resource.
No, so after the song goes down, one way to think about it.
So it's actually like fishing is worth more in England than some scallop.
Now, let's say, the lining is at the margin of the temperature.
Yes, of course, and the ever was in proportion.
So increase the temperature.
You do?
In the vacuum, I think sometimes we'll imagine,
For another minute, maybe?
and
Am I together?
maybe you imagine.
Sure.
So I think it's sort of mental exercise. We're not talking about it.
So what I'm saying is, so a stakeholder, you're going to come in at a table with a completely different approach to what you're thinking. Like, I'm going to give up what I say. So I'm coming at it from Mexico, the fishery industry, fishermen, and my approach is like, you have this other group like the DNR and the innkeepers that, I'm saying like they like the seals and the whales, but I was like, yeah, but they're eating the pot and the mackerel, the whiting. So, I want to get rid of them. Whereas, if you come in from the perspective of the baykeeper, you said, sorry, this fisherman, busting me because they like the whale. So that's the kind of approach that you're trying to do when you're trying to look what are the connections between the differences.
Yeah, I think it's good actually that we each take when we can talk scientifically too, right, about things that, choose your whatever you want your maximization to be. What's your, everyone choose a goal. And then, we'll talk about the features, but then, I think it'll be more fun to be talking about, how to approach it, or your different perspectives. So we're not all trying, we're not solving the same problem. That's really what's like district management. There's a lot of different people with different needs. Okay. Let's use that and we'll talk.
This is not more about your goal of what you want to do. This is more about what do you think the important driver in the system, right? So you might think that you care about anchovies and you think the important driver is that they're being eaten by all of the mackerel or whatever, right? And so you say mackerel, draw a mackerel component, draw an arrow, negative impact, The later you put in a simulation framework to explore how to get to your goal, but this is just what do you think is the important driver.
That's where, what's your goal? So what we're saying is what are we doing? And we're saying, well, let's have some different ideas.
I got you.
What that is.
All right. I'm going to hide this because I'm afraid it's making people think about trophic interactions. But and I want you to go thinking beyond trophic interactions.
So how in this case, if I assume the role of fisher, I may not necessarily care about representing the benefits.
Right.
Further, because it doesn't make sense. I'm just focused on getting my side of it.
Exactly. It's kind of not the whole thing that just like, I care about the species and these species eat it, and it eats that, and that's all I care about. Or you might not care about trophic interactions at all. You might think, what leads me to fish it more? Well, I think, the price of some other fish might influence how you fish, and maybe you want to get that incorporated in the model. Or the price of gear, might affect how much you fish. So there's those sorts of things that you might want to get incorporated. And, think about your role as a fisherman, or you might think, hey, it has to do with water temperature. I do the best fishing when there's a lot of fish out, when it's warmer waters, or there's any variety of things that a fisherman might think about beyond sort of trophic interaction. So that's what I'm going to.
I was just bringing the DNR for.
Okay, that's what. Policy. Exactly.
What do you have going on there?
Yeah, I was just thinking, it's a typical sort of response from end users to sort of blame some idea of really efficient too much. And captured in the one box. But then you have this whale that feels like eating. And how do we deal with managing that impact? Well, everyone is going to have people that they keep. They're one of those, like, the whale. DNR is the one that, sits on the roof.
So what if the whale actually begins to
see, but I would not be concerned about it. And that's the point, that's what you were saying.
I'm saying maybe it should because, habitat can destroy, but you may have these indirect pathways.
So that's why in the conversation, when you bring someone to the table, that's a density policy. Hey, look, but the whales, they actually be helping you with your garden, even though they eat it because they do this.
And it also has to have a thing like this, and arrowtooth flounder are these predators that can policy cod that are valuable targets. And so we thought if they could take some of those out, they'd really have more policy cod, and that's good. But actually, when you put whales and sea lions in the model, you take arrowtooth out, and the whales and sea lions, instead of eating arrowtooth, they eat more policy cod. Right, so it's not, there's no uncertainty in those predators.
So do the shrimpers destroy the habitat of benthos?
Yeah.
And then
Eventually.
are they mutually exclusive with the whales? In that case?
Yeah, good question. I don't know. Yeah, right, so that is potentially, it's competing, really maybe you should be more concerned with other fisheries than whales.
Yeah, judging.
For the whales, maybe, the whales are eating shrimp also, and, that they're destroying the
In this
habitat.
model, they're not. They don't in Anchovy Bay. We've already been told that.
They don't destroy the habitat.
No, they don't eat, the whales don't eat shrimp in Anchovy Bay. We have to take that truth as self-evident.
Yeah, well, last of them, I believe it.
Then there would be a non-arrow in between the scientist and the stakeholder, I think.
I think their goal is to these forestation which bring stakeholders together, and they all have their own sort of perspective. So the idea is that this allows us to take those instructions, plug it into the system, and then be able to demonstrate how that fits, without there being extremely quantitative.
Right. So that's one more factors that you all brought up. We're thinking about the system much.
Well, economic value of the fishery, recreational value, and tourism value. Right. So I'm the mayor, and I want to maximize wages and consistency in my community. So those are the things that I value. I don't know which thing is in the center, though.
What you mean in terms of how you trade them off?
Yeah, I mean, what do we put in the center of our, and oysters was the center of the other example.
I guess I would say that those would be values that come out of the whole system for you, right? And the flows of these measured in this way. So you have different, unless there was tourism, you had no whales. But you would eventually have more.
I'm going to brought that up because he mentioned integrated ecosystem assessment, and one of the things about integrated ecosystem assessment is that we start from an overarching goal. What are the goals for this system? What is this ecosystem? What is it that the public value, the stakeholder value? I mean, a perfect example could be something as like, hey, we want good water supply. That's a quantitative value. So it drives how you're going to assess the ecosystem. Because if the water in the ecosystem is all bunking in, sinking in, good, well, it's clashing with the value that people want out of the system. So how do you
winning? They've got something forward. So let's go around quick. What would be what are your priorities here, and what do you think are the main factors?
I think the main concern was the main issue goal setting by management agencies. That they're impacted.
Like the environmentalists and the regulators.
Yeah, so there's sort of dealing with the field, particularly field. It just happens. That it's impacting the fisheries.
Okay. So, I know you're going to say that it's extreme weather, then that's good. Yeah. That's what right here, see right now. Yeah, this is all made up for one stuff.
Question is how much is impacting all of these things and how that impacts fisheries. If you're a mayor, you're in trouble with all the fish are taking off, but if you're a mobile closed.
Maybe, that comes from a different place.
Like, you can back that in the extreme weather, decreases the number of predators, or decreases the predators, then have an effect on
Exactly, yeah, you'll know any other. Gotta be fun about whatever. You can just tell them if you want to. Like, Anchovy.
I was thinking I'd go to the field before you made the decision. But yeah,
There you go.
yeah, in that case, very important.
Yeah. And it can be double positive or double negative.
I put two pluses for this this field, and one minus for this field.
Another one that you.
So some different things that I like the PDO, these decadal oscillations, those kinds of things, temperature, and also have a big impact on how prey gets pushed, depending on where Anchovy Bay is, they have some variations year to year that can lead to different availability of prey and things. Heat waves, we have like these maximum of anything like a huge, blob, sometimes over Alaska, and then heat waves here all over the world. Ocean precipitation, some of them, proportionally. Fishing, that you might have, that cross-national, like, starting to border, and it's not all controlled effort.
Did you go beyond, Anchovies affecting the whale and where the movement figure out whale, because there were other services.
But we know that they don't believe there's anchovy somehow.
Cackalithopores,
So I guess I would be
they eat cackalithopores
trying to think how to maximize your national benefits, because that's my job. But how do you be yourself? How do you get the sum of the recreational and commercial values on all the different stakeholders? Trying to think about that as sometimes discounted present value. And some things are just scratched, so you have to let them go. And how do you balance?
So from the next second, is it the same in terms of, like, for example, the first time, but the other side?
I'd say, yeah. I think there's different people who lost, and there are different people who won. So we have these relationships among the people, right? The things I would draw up here would be, species we have here,
we just about 10 minutes and we are talking feather buster models.
But we turn around because we still need to keep the model, but there's a component. It's better to
think of it as a socio-ecological model. Think beyond just, or think of humans as part of the ecosystem.
But you still have to anchor your trying to obviously percent of the part.
Well, the few things important.
Yeah, so definitely an original question on it, you anchoring it around something, like, you have something in the center here, whether it's like hot,
you don't have to have all that. You might just care about the wheel. You don't care about anything else.
No, that's what I mean. There's something from the ecosystem that you have to.
Yeah, something about the
You have to have a currency. Is it money? Is it oyster? Okay, so decide on it.
But I don't know if you have, can you have ecosystem services, like at the,
you can start off, you probably would end up wanting to break that down into a few different, are you just gonna copy it? I'm just kidding with you.
big key little thing? So if you want to make it short, just put like a big T little thing. So the other one is big D little thing.
Oh, it looks like you're just talking. Okay, all right. Is that enough to get you started?
So economics, we have what sort of, this efficiency.
Yeah. You might need to break out economics into a couple, there's an economy of Anchovy Bay, but there might be another economy somewhere else. Of the east, right? Mayor?
Should I hide this now so I don't make you? All right.
Mayor is the plant branch. Think about this being, national, local, doesn't care about anyone, but find folks. Sure, well, it's kind of reduced. This is a made-up system. You can make Anthony flip-flops grow up here. It's a lot of making stuff.
Okay, what about oil harvest or super harvest?
Also lay on the rock.
We don't have time to come and see that. That's actually a positive.
The fields like, day on the dock, day to the net, that would make it hard for, that would have a negative impact.
Yeah.
So how do you pretend that to be balanced out?
We can break it out into different tourists. Like the whale watching type, mammal watching, mammal loving tourists, the mammal huggers. And then there might be the people who want to watch on the pier, the land-based tourists. That's the thing, you start off with your the office, you break them into more refined, that's part of the benefit of the exercise. You start with refining the problem.
The reality is these are probably practically, you want to catch your thing, not the, or you want to be able to hide your hide. There's that issue, your friend. So you're actually happy with the other stuff, more of your prey, less your predators, in general.
Somebody could be a stakeholder, people can say, well, actually, tourism has gone down, or tourism has gone down, but then the price of flower still. And, we have agriculture harvesting weeds from the system, and then that weed harvest causes runoff in the Anchovy Bay,
Well, some of these people may say, well, actually, if we don't have a healthy environment, it's tempered, and they realize we're not field grass dead, we're going to be in trouble. In a happy world, you start realizing that, okay, taking care of this, sometimes it's not. Or you have assumptions that have different ideas about how it works. So we had all these digital drivers, right?
Do you want
Heat waves. Tabs.
Well, by the way, I'm happy to announce.
We'll start wrapping it up in about 5 minutes or so.
Oil increase distribution center at the mouth. Anchovy did.
All right.
And then we currently get
Another oil distribution
So
it's benefiting the mayor directly. You know.
We're talking to mayors. But then there's these relationships, the CEO may have this, like,
When you have like, you know, like, I know going on the Stargate, you know, they have that, send that in here. And they have this little technical, so it can be possibly go for the day.
So it's at least positive.
But there's also positive. You can set the positive thing with the oscillation. Because when it's in the negative phase, it has permanent impact, but when it's in the positive phase, it has different impact.
But it needs a positive.
Oh, okay. So you want to have it?
So we got half. The physicality here is like the disproportionate impact of these things. This is what the model tells you, right? So that's the way we know these different relationships and there's some impact. What happens? Right. One of the challenges here is that this is all happening very fast. And so this is the model to keep understanding timing of that. What else would you think would be important? Connection to the relationship. So, when these things happen here, what's the relationship? Is there associated with flying spectrum and everything?
Yeah.
Bird watching, bird watching. What is the nearest bird that you ever see? And I have to represent birds. I've actually been in a meeting where we had American Bird Conservancy come in and talk about it. Two more minutes. Final connections.
If we want to consider
Where is you?
Next is
Oh, okay.
Got a whole bottom of the board there.
Between harmful and regular phytoplankton.
I was thinking about this as regular as primary connectivity. I'm not.
Urban developer of a negative one there? Oh man, I think all people love urban development. All the dumps and stuff. There's positive phytoplankton as a food source. And the food coming in is the half. That has a negative impact, but it's almost like your model is just you might be all about
When you see the quality of the benthos, the shelter streams, et cetera, and the water clarity, which relates to the harmful blooms, the jellyfish, and stuff like that. There's something of a trade-off between the benthos is doing poorly than but is more susceptible to have.
All right, one more minute.
Anyone have some comments? No one negative?
All right, well, figure it all out.
All right. And then you have to elect somebody to be your representative to
what I can prefer, I can think about, all right, I'm going to think about these people versus these people versus these people. Trying to measure it in a way that you can trade off. How much do I care about this person, the mayor, saying this is excellent stuff, awesome, this is the best thing ever. But everyone else is like, no, that's really dangerous. How do we make it trade off? Whatever.
All right. Y'all had enough fun with this? Y'all ready to present to your peer stakeholder group? So, first off, I hope this is more fun than listening to talk for another hour. That was a big goal here. 2 hours, I only had to fill 2 hours. I'm just thinking it's much more fun to interact, and this is real world. What a lot of folks like myself who learn how to model and just parameter estimation and crunch numbers. Like, oh, how do you just start talking to stakeholders and working with economists? That was great. I just I thought about this. Yeah, exactly. So Chip actually did great, and other anthropologists and social scientists. And so this is a condensed version, of course. Like for that Coast Louisiana project, they developed these sort of conceptual models, and they did it over several stakeholder workshops with mediators helping them. And even after they've done that, they've now made the model so complex they got to go back and say, all right, what's really the big important things here? We can't measure all of this, and we can't keep track of it all. So, this takes several rounds. But at least you got the idea. And did you all learn a little something about your made-up system that you hadn't thought about before in this discussion? Yeah, I did too. We really care more about pizza than over here. Does anybody want to walk through? What do you guys somebody can kind of walk through your system and explain what's going on there? Because ultimately, this is two different stakeholder groups that we're going to pull together and build a Uber model of all this stuff that we don't have time to at least kind of walk through. And anybody? You can mix out. So in the middle, we kind of duplicated, the critters, right? What happened up here, and then we said, okay, who are the kind of different stakeholders? We have tourists, police, the mayor, who just made this great big deal with Exxon over here to build a new facility that we bring lots of money to the town, as well as caring about some of the other tourist things. The environmentalists, and then scientists/economists who are thinking about, all right, we want to figure out how to maximize that national benefit to take the whole system. So that there are all these positive and negative relationships through the system, which we kind of saw in the picture, and then we thought about a bunch of kind of factors of EO, specification, global pricing, heat wave, tabs, and then this kind of oil pollution possibility, or some of the things that we talked about. We're going to be trying to look at some of those factors. And I was originally thinking that cytosine was discussed all good for the system, not purely, but then we talked about how the tabs that's not. We talked about some of the different ways in which all species were positively and negatively related to each other. So that's one of the key things. You thought about something in a way different than you had before, because the different stakeholder had a different viewpoint that you hadn't considered before. As your goal as a scientist, economist, or mayor, or whatever. Mayor party. So that's one of the key points. If I fight about anything, or fight broke out. In the real stakeholder world, it's just a made-up stakeholder world that's pretty peaceful. So, how about over here? Let's go on who should represent the system board, explain what's going on here. You were drawing it, so I think your person was drawing it probably.
The Center of Art University in Anchovy. And what really, and I know I've actually looked at some of my interpretations of my own. Anchovy, in a lot of agriculture and weather driving, agriculture, economics and weather, one form or another, it is driving the system. We have a couple different issues. We have the all-important pizza harvest, which affects the anchovy negatively, but also it's positive for food. So this particular area is known for anchovy. In addition to that, we have this more of a tailored traditional harvest for basically from the anchovy. And then what are the other? We're also looking at what are the other influences on anchovy. Extreme weather fluctuations. For example, the magnitude of fluctuations, the frequency. We're saying that in some instances, it's not going to positive effect. But this is our own limit.
Yeah.
So in that, we're also looking at other atmospheres such as CO2, saying that increased pH had negative effect on anchovy as well as negative effect on the food resources. Wrapping this back into for the economics tourism is looking at urban development, because now they're making a lot of money. So urban development, more people, more maybe increased tourism. So then we also have other losses from the anchovy are the finfish predators having a negative effect on the anchovy. And the anchovy, of course, having a positive effect on that. But we have another fishing, too, the fishing. This is an up and coming commercial venture in our particular town. So we're really focusing on increasing the economy. But then we realized that there's other predators in the system that don't necessarily reside in the water. That's a flying predator. I'll try to show you that. So it is having a difficult to speed up the line, a negative effect on the anchovy. But as you get the flying cherry back, I mean, it increases the tourism. People really want to see it, put it on their list. So they have the positive effect on tourism as well. Another part of tourism and economics is there's still a lot of whales there. So people like to see whales, so we're going to continue that particular conversation. Oh, in terms of getting more to for the nutrient drivers in the system, we do still have some agriculture, but increased urbanization and decreased agriculture. But agriculture still has a positive effect on nutrient management, which we're saying has a negative effect directly on anchovies through creating hypoxic conditions in certain regions of the day. Also a positive effect on hams, which has a negative effect on anchovies. And we get a lot of fun.
That was important. That's fun. But you also see how if you're a stakeholder, you have something in your mind that extreme weather is what's called fluctuations in that's all it really matters. You start looking at the other stakeholders, you're like, oh, well, actually there's a lot more going on here, and maybe extreme weather's not all that important. Or you start to see the conflict. Well, I want more anchovies in my sushi restaurant, but I want more for my pizza restaurant. Both even for tourism, and how do we resolve those sort of conflicts? Well, first let's agree that there's a conflict there and map that out, and then we can start figure out what data we need or what approaches we need to map that out and look at different ways to manage the resource so that everybody can feed as much of their need as possible, etc.
It's one thing I think in the discussion, like we're doing this with fishermen a lot. Like we're really like caricaturing fishermen in this. Meaning like I don't care about my fish.
Yeah.
And actually like the pizza restaurant actually may be really good for the anchovies because basically it creates value in the anchovies and these better management. Because like I want to have a sustainable harvest. Be able to have it sustainably instead of like, don't worry about it, it's effective. It's over fish or not. And then same thing with kind of their case on the environment where they're worried about the whales that are eating the fish, but they're also worried about, the basic ecosystem health that provides the environment for your fish to survive.
Yeah, and that just one of the just did you find something you wrote a mod, or wrote a node or component, and then you say, well, I got to refine that one, then break it out into a couple different components. Actually, it's not just simple caricature I have in my head. It's a lot more to it.
And even with that, our discussion now is that, okay, we need to have more notes.
Yeah.
We need, species market. We need to have our symptom market. As an example.
And I think either you're just kind of like that for the management, enforcement, whatever.
Yeah.
And then we get, in there and after them.
And the government.
Yeah. Yeah, right. And they make the decisions about, the trade-off of the people, and that's such a matter of your right, trying to step outside the system a bit, but, I mean, you can see how, then like you said, you guys want to make your model even more complex add more connections. Then you go back and say, well, let's actually try to model this, or do we need to actually quantify it, or do we have enough shared understanding that we think we can understand, some preferred basins of what's going to keep it, maybe that's all we need to do with the case, or maybe that we're really fighting this out with good information here to see which has a bigger impact, X or Y or Z. And then really, but the idea is that we all have a shared mental model, and to the extent that you need to make that more quantitative, advocate for more resources, say, hey, well, we're going to take some time to study the sushi industry and Anchovy Bay, and we're going to go, just the climate scientists to help us really understand how extreme weather affects these resources. So I find it a really start expanding your thinking. That was a question at the end of Cisco's talk yesterday. That really complex science, because so I thought, somebody came up with that's awfully complex. You can't do all of that. I mean, I'm oversimplifying the person's comments, but no, you're right. But if you really draw it out, you can say, okay, what's going to impact that? How can these steps come together with almost a good resolution here? And you also will find, this is well beyond what a fisheries manager should have to be worried about, right? You do need to take into account the mayor and other environmental groups and, those sorts of things, and other controls you can have over the system to maintain something.
You think it's a lot of the agency or prevent if there's a lot of agreement in those connections, or you're not quite clear on the biology.
Yeah.
Can you see that or model that?
So for example, in that, if you're doing just to have a snapshot here, good. But if you want to do like perturbation analysis, that mental modeler software was starting to demonstrate did have a way to do that. So when you do the perturbation analysis, you can add uncertainty to that, so it'll run multiple simulations with random variables and uncertainty in the strength of the connection and produce different results. You can turn these into Bayesian belief networks where you can actually have correlations. You actually have some real scientific numbers there that you plug in. And so this is the route for a lot of different ways to go. But the key thing is you've got everybody, you got a paper talking, you do a few rounds of this, weed it out, add things in, put some numbers so you actually have numbers. Like, maybe not everybody's happy, but at least it comes to some happy medium sort of solution in the system. They've done this like with, the Oyster Futures project down in the Kentucky Bay. Had this sort of, I think there's 4 or 5 different meetings with the stakeholders, understanding and building models together, going from these conceptual models to adding the quantitative stuff to it. And so, they came to some happy medium solutions about what to be done. Now, whether managers take that up, that still remains to be seen, but at least the person's work there in a couple other places. So, I think that's kind of where we're going with this. But it's interesting thing. all of a sudden I'm not all that worried about HPC resources to run my model. There's other ways to do it. So, just thinking, but thank you everybody for coming to this session. I hope you had fun, and we'll see you around. Don't forget those 76 yesterday. The best one, yeah. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate y'all being here. All right. Share mine. Stop sharing. I don't know that we ever had any. Oh, I think I didn't press record.
Yeah, she did.
Oh, she did. Okay.
I think it was recording, yeah.
Press stop. Oh, yeah, yeah.
Stop, yeah.
Oh, good. Okay.